So, hello everyone. This is expert session number 51. And today I'm joined by Nikolai. And Nikolai is a seasoned expert in the convenience and petrol retail industry with extensive experience across Russia, the UK, and Middle East. Having worked with the world's largest four-count retailer, he has driven growth strategies, managed P&L, and led teams to expand networks and revenue streams. His expertise spans marketing, non-fuel retail, convenience retail, real estate, network development, and sales and operations. Nikolai has played a pivotal role in transforming petrol stations into multi-purpose destinations, enhancing customer experience and profitability. A big thanks to AirMeet for powering today's session and enabling us to connect seamlessly. So the first question, Nikolai, before we dive into your career and speak about the Gulf, um, it's always a controversial question that we start with. And the question is, in markets like the Gulf, where fuel prices are relatively low, do convenience and forecourt retailers truly prioritize customer experience, or is it profitability still largely driven by fuel sales?
Okay. First of all, hello, Carlos, and hello, everyone, and pleasure to be here. It's an interesting question. It's kind of, straight to the point. Definitely, if you think of let's say, a petrol station location in the Gulf or Middle East in general, right? So it's still driven by the fuel in terms of the volumes and incomes, because this is part of the world where the public transport is a bit kind of a secondary thing and you mostly drive your car. So the volumes of cars and volumes of fuel that being pumped through the gas stations is really big. But when you think of what we call it in the industry, non-fuel retail, yeah, so meaning everything apart from the fuel, being that convenience store, coffee outlet, food outlet, and so on, that plays a very important role. Because if you compare the two location, um, on, let's say, same side of the road, a few kilometers away, one does have a shop and the other one doesn't have a shop, and both have fuel, and the quality of fuel is great everywhere. The prices are fixed across many markets, so there's little differentiation that you can do when it comes to fuel. So that's why all the non-fuel aspect actually plays a role why people would choose you over the other guy, right? So that's why it's actually very important to have a robust kind of non-fuel offer. And you will see that, and we saw that in statistics, that when some companies actually closed down or were refurbishing their non-fuel facilities, they actually saw a decline in fuel because people would drive away and would go somewhere else because they want to refuel and do something else, right? So that's kind of broadly um,
Mm.
to paint the picture for you, right?
Perfect. Thank you. So let's before we speak about your career, like yesterday, I think I would like to start with a different dynamic since we're starting hot here. But just to talk about the market dynamics, you were really educating me on, like, we speak about the Middle East as if it was only one region, and it's actually not, right? So we have the Levant region, we have the Gulf region, and so if you could start painting the picture and teaching us, educating us on what the Middle East actually is, and how these regions are different in terms of
Mhm.
buying power, what are the differences?
Okay. Um, well, again, I'm not trying to be kind of an expert on many social economic things here, but maybe just sharing, few general observations, right? If you think of a Middle East region, that's a construct that was mostly created by the Western countries, right? Middle East is a kind of concept of the West. If you here in the region, you have different ways how you can kind of slice and dice this region. You can think and talk about the Northern Africa, which is a separate region, geographically and historically a bit different. You have the Gulf, right? And in the Gulf, you have the Arabian Peninsula countries, but also inside that you have the Cooperation Council of the Gulf countries, which is the 6 countries, but not let's say Yemen, which is part of the a peninsula, is not part of the GCC. right? Then you have the Levant region, as you mentioned, right? So Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, so those kind of places. Um, Again, sometimes Arabs themselves they split the Arab world into the two parts. They call it kind of West and East, or kind of Maghrib and Mashriq, where the sun sets and where the sun rises. So there are different ways how you can differentiate it. Again, what is interesting, it's ethnically similar region, it all Arabs, but there's a lot of little peculiarities, little differences in the regions and within the countries, and even within the, let's say, within the cities, because you have a lot of um, let's say, dialects. So Arab language is not a homogenic language at all, right? So you have plenty of dialects. Every region has their own. And when I say region, it's part of the country. So part of the country would speak slightly differently to another part of the same country. So there's a lot of dialects, and when people start learning Arabic, they're like, what should I learn, right? It all depends where you want to live and work, because they all a little bit different. Um, Buying power, very, very different. Again, how diverse the economies are very different. So as a rule of thumb, you would say that in the Gulf, you have a bit higher um, buying power, right? A bit wealthier nations, but at the same time, the economies are less diversified, right? So if you think of UAE, for example, where I am based, if you think the whole country is kind of 50% oil and 50% something else, but then if you go deeper into, let's say, Dubai as one of the Emirates in the UAE, it's mostly something else rather than oil. It's only 5% oil um, in the in the budget of that particular emirate, right? So it's really different. You can continue digging into that, and it's a little bit kind of tough for me to go deeper, but depending on what you want to know. Yeah?
Yeah, no, no. Yeah, let's stick to what you're saying here. So, what are so you've been developing a very interesting career in the fuel and convenience store market or vertical, right? And
Hmm.
you work for Shell, right? And in Russia and in the UAE and in other markets. And so, tell me a bit about that experience and how that yeah how how you arrived to where you are today in life, and at pro store and what you guys are doing.
Sure. So basically, yeah. When I meet new people, I always say the same thing, that somehow my whole adult life is about petrol stations,
Mhm.
right? And my friends, they joke about me and petrol stations, that I need to visit at least one or two every
Mhm.
single day. And everywhere where I go and visit them and check and see what's going on. It's just a matter of habit. So yeah, I joined the industry in Russia. I joined Shell. I was in the Shell team over there, developing the petrol station chain across different departments, operations, real estate, and so on. And then I moved to the headquarters to London, and I started working on the non-fuel global non-fuel retail. I was in charge of implementing the new shop concept across the world for Shell. And then there was another global role when it comes to the category management and working with suppliers. But then I moved to the Middle East. I moved first to Oman with Shell, and I
Mhm.
was bringing back the convenience stores to Oman, because Shell used to run them, then closed that part off. So they kept the fuel and they just rented out the boxes on the stations. And then when I arrived, they actually wanted to bring back that type of business, the new vertical, and that's what I was doing. And then from there, that there I spent a couple of years, and then more than 3 years now I'm in the UAE. When moving here, I resigned from the corporation. I opened my own company and started doing consulting work, and I keep working with the same industry of fuel and convenience around the Middle East, a little bit in Asia as well, a little bit in Central Asia, but mostly in the Gulf and Middle East broadly. And again, helping those companies with the everything related to non-fuel retail, right? Convenience stores, coffee, food, and so on. And I think worth mentioning that I also became the representative of the Global Association of Convenience Stores, which is called NACS. So kind of I'm playing a role of connecting the industry here between themselves, but also to the global industry. You know?
And Nikolai, tell me a bit about because you mentioned some very interesting keywords here. I like taking note of
Mm,
keywords. So you
yep,
mentioned
yep.
real estate and retail, right? And convenience stores in the petrol business, are they more in the real estate business or in the retail business?
Uh, well, you have different markets and different companies at different stage of development, right? So I would say that big giant corporations like Shell, BP, Total Energies, Exxon, and so on, they went through a long journey of understanding this business, and for them, the right way is to run it. Right? You have a location, you have people coming to that location, you have a variety of um, products and services you can sell them, and it's better to do that yourself as much as possible, where you have the expertise or capabilities to run kind of higher margin, right? To earn higher margin. But that starts with a very simple, so that journey starts with very simple thinking of, okay, I have a land plot and I have a petrol station on it. I sell this much liters of fuel. What else I can do with that land plot? So the actual kind of start of the cycle is real estate thinking, and you have quite a lot of companies around the world, including Middle East and North Africa, that on the kind of earlier stages of that development, and they think of their plot as a real estate. So, okay, how do I just rent it out? And they build additional boxes to rent it out. So they don't want to run it. But the industry shows, and the history of the industry shows, that it's a way better idea to run as much as possible by yourself, right? To actually be more into the retail rather than real estate. So there's no straight answer, is it real estate or retail? It's for some it's retail only, for some it's real estate only, but most run some kind of a mixture.
And you were mentioning yesterday some of the I think, I mean, do you have that support material? Would you like to share? I mean, I'm not checking your support material, I'm just running things as I remember on based
Sure.
on what you shared. But you have, like, for example, let's take a market like Saudi,
Mm-hmm.
nearly 9,000 petrol stations, right?
Yep. Yep.
Around the country. And then you have a couple of brands there. And so you were explaining, because this market is, at least in the Gulf, as I understood,
Mm-hmm.
is largely, I mean, public transportation is not the main transport. And so you
Yep.
have
Yep.
the petrol stations as a destination, kind of like an important destination for people when they're in transit, and
Yep.
and so petrol stations, they can be almost, there's a blurry line, as if they were sometimes they're not supermarkets or mini markets, but they are kind of like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
mini markets. So I'm curious to understand a little bit of that world in that sense. What differ the markets, the main chains,
Mm-hmm.
the blurry lines between supermarkets, petrol stations, trends,
Sure.
that's where I want to take this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, that works. Yeah, I have some slides that I can show in a
Mhm.
moment. But let me address first what you described there. So basically, if you think of a convenience store, right, that means quite different thing in different parts of the world, right? And you have different names for it, right? You have newsagent, you have dairy, you have a convenience store name, but essentially it's a relatively small size of a store that is in a convenient location, right? As simple as that, and no difference here in the Gulf. The thing is that if you think of a convenience store channel, you have at least three main kind of types of locations where you would put a convenience store. One is the neighborhoods where people live. Um, the other one is transient or transport locations, so where they travel from A to Z, be that train station, bus station, and so on. And then you have a petrol station, right, where people drive by, go and buy something. So out of those three channels or three types of convenience locations, In the Gulf, the public transport is very limited. You do have some transit locations, you do have some transport, but it's not as developed or as important as it is in Europe or other places.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're left with neighborhood and petrol. So neighborhood, this is the type of locations that is very heavily dominated by supermarkets. So you have quite a big supermarket names in the region, international, regional, and local, that occupy that space. And again, interesting parallel you can take. I can compare, let's say, UK with the Gulf. An average person in Britain, they first of all they live in a smaller households of less than two people, and normally they don't cook, they buy something out or they go and eat somewhere. So basically an average British person at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, they don't know what they will have for dinner. And this is the brilliant occasion for a convenience store to offer that food opportunity, right? And then when we kind of travel to the Gulf, you have average number of people per household is more than five. So you cannot afford not to know what you're going to eat tonight. So there's a lot of planned consumption, and that's why supermarket brands historically been very strong, because just go there, you drive there, you pick up your groceries for the week ahead, for 2 weeks ahead, and so on, right? And convenience is really about picking up a few things for today, maybe for tomorrow, right? And then as those supermarket players were evolving, they also evolved their portfolio of locations and sizes. And definitely all of the big names here in the Gulf, like Carrefour, Lulu, Nesto, and so on, they all kind of sizing down their operations and they go into smaller locations into the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
In Saudi Arabia, for example, those are the local names, Al Uthaim, Danube, Tamimi markets. They all have smaller size um, store and they go into the neighborhoods with them. And they have very strong customer base because people used to go to the groceries. So the blur is there that kind of a small store that is called convenience wants to grow their assortment and the size, and the supermarkets wants to grow smaller and go into the neighborhoods kind of to find those people in their localities. So that's why the size is kind of going towards each other. But then coming back to the three channels, you have the petrol channel that is left, and this is where the main convenience operations you will find in the region, right? Okay, on that, let me maybe
Yeah.
show.
Can I ask
Mm.
you a question regarding market size? What's the market size of the non-fuel or convenience store market, perhaps worldwide and then in the Middle East? If you have that, I had a bit of a challenge finding the exact number. I think it was in the house of $1 billion, 34, 35, some data I found. I'm not sure if it's
Yeah,
accurate.
I think that is, yeah, the estimation is about $1 billion. You have better industry data in the US. So for the US,
Hmm.
you have quite a lot of quite accurate numbers. For the rest of the world is less so, mostly because the definition of convenience is quite different, right? So
Hmm.
if you speak to someone like Nielsen here in the region, they do have data on some countries, don't have on others, and then in some countries they treat convenience stores. Let's say if you're in the city, you have a convenience store, then yeah, that's a convenience store. But the store that is on the motorway, they don't treat it as a convenience, right? Because they have different sizing and different offering. So you don't have that much of a good data, right?
Hmm. No problem. Thanks. Let's go through your presentation. I also have questions regarding more like technology and transformation,
Sure.
and I'm sure our folks here they also want to jump in. But let's go. Let's go, Nikolai.
Sure. Yeah, it's a relative short one, just to give you a bit of a glimpse on what's going on. So this is just a short slide intro. I shared that few countries,
Hmm.
quite a lot of things with Shell, but now independently. Um, and then looking at the Gulf countries when it comes to the convenience, you look at the map, and as I just explained, we're talking convenience in relation to fuel, right?
Mhm.
And because of the regulations, you have limited number of fuel companies that are operating in different countries. So if you take countries like Oman or Arab Emirates, it's only 3 companies, and they're all somehow linked with the government. In a place like Qatar or Bahrain, it's only one really organized fuel company. In Kuwait, it's again only 3. But then if you think of Saudi Arabia, that's the only market in this part of the world where the fuel industry is completely deregulated. It's dozens, if not hundreds, of players all across the country. Now there are efforts from the authorities to actually consolidate the industry, but it's still quite a lot of operators, local names,
Mhm.
regional names, and even international names. In terms of the number of stations, and that's important. I'll show you that in a moment. You see that, let's say Saudi is a big country. You have around
Mhm.
9,000 stations there, but in the places like Oman or UAE, it's only a few hundreds, right? So 900 in the UAE and 600 in Oman. Only 60 stations in Bahrain, only 150 in Qatar, right? Not that many,
Mhm.
right? Why it's important? Because if you compare that to number of people that live in those countries, you can see that this is the index that I normally use, population to station, like how many people you have per station. And to give you a reference here, if you go to Italy, this is 2,000 people per station on average,
All right.
right? And then if you travel to the Gulf, you have place like Bahrain, where you have 23,000 people per station. That means that refueling your car in Bahrain, it's a commitment. It's a 45 minutes story. You need to really dedicate your time. You will have
Got it.
huge queues, right?
Uh-huh.
Similar thing in Qatar, similar thing in the UAE. UAE still, it's a relatively small place, but still underserved in terms of the number of stations. So you have massive
Mhm.
volumes, quite a lot of people coming through. If you look at the Saudi, overall, the index is not that high compared to other countries. But if you take it, let's say, big cities versus the smaller places, it's quite different, right? If you think of Riyadh, again, Riyadh is underserved. It's not enough petrol stations versus number of people, number of cars, right? Then
And why is that?
another,
Just
hmm?
curious. Sorry, why is that? Just in your opinion, of course.
Sure.
Why is it underserved?
Uh, well, you see, in some places, let's say like Bahrain, it's very complex procedure to actually open a petrol station. In
Hmm.
Bahrain, till this date, if you want to open a petrol station, you need to have the approval of the king for whatever
Got
reason,
it.
right?
It's a culture. Yeah, it is what it is.
So, um, yeah, in Saudi Arabia, it's a little bit different, but still, if you think of Riyadh, for example, it's a massive city, right? It's
Hmm.
6 million people and keeps growing. Um, I think the amount of people, the amount of construction, the amount of new roads, and the people kind of fleeing to Riyadh is so quick that people just don't get to build that many stations
Hmm.
that quickly, right? And again, because you had dozens and dozens of independent players
Hmm.
with relatively low margins, so they would kind of run maybe even one station for ages, for decades. They would just run one station and be happy with it. They were not big corporations who were able to actually invest and grow their network, right? And
Hmm.
now it's changing with the consolidation. Yeah?
Hmm.
Because important aspect in that context is the margin, right? The
Hmm.
fuel margin. Even though you have huge volumes, the margin per liter of that fuel is not that high in most of the
Hmm.
places. And across the Gulf, the price is set by the government. So the authorities will tell you this is how much you buy the gasoline from the refinery for, and this is how much you sell it to the end consumer. So everything is given, the margin is given. UAE is the only one where they have very healthy margins, 12%, I think comparable only to places like Germany or Argentina, one of the
Hmm.
highest fuel margins around the world. The rest is very small. So if you're kind of one petrol station operator in Saudi Arabia and you have 6% margin on fuel, you have enough money to maintain your operations, but not to invest and grow, right?
Hmm.
So with that, you have kind of big volumes of people coming to the location, but you
Hmm.
earn relatively low
Hmm.
from the fuel. And that's why it's so important to actually develop the non-fuel part, because this is where you can earn, where this is where you can have the higher margins. This is where instead of just 6%, you can earn, let's say, on average 30% on the assortment, or up to 80% on the cup of coffee. And this is where all those people are actually looking into. But the thing is that your transaction for fuel happens on the forecourt, on the pumps. So you actually don't need to step out of your vehicle to go and pay somewhere. And that's the main
Hmm.
challenge for the industry, to actually convert people to step out of their cars, go into the store, and actually buy something there. And technology is
So
something that you mentioned. Sorry? No?
mhm. No, yeah, yeah, yeah. So because in Brazil we have people actually filling the pump for you,
Yep.
whereas in the US you don't have that. I remember many years ago I was like in Denmark as well. It's a self-service,
Hmm.
so it
Yep.
makes sense that you fill the pump and then you go into the store, right?
Yep.
But I was actually curious. So there in these countries, you typically have a person filling the pump for you. Is it? It's
Yeah,
like in
exactly.
Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Fully
Yeah,
served
yeah.
market. Yeah. Yeah.
It makes it all harder for people to leave their cars.
Exactly.
Right?
Also,
Uh,
of course, you have the weather. Big part of the
yeah.
year it's very hot and so on. But still,
Hmm.
you need to lure them in. And
Hmm.
this is where, let's say, technology comes in. For example,
Hmm.
some of the players, they report that the moment they put digital screens on the shop
Hmm.
front and they put relevant messaging, they actually can increase their conversion. Because on average,
Hmm.
if you look at the region, conversion from fuel to the store is around 20 to 25%. The moment you put
Hmm.
screens on your shop front, you can push that
Hmm.
by another five, right? You can grow it to
Hmm.
30% conversion, which is a big number if you think of it in the context of these operations, right?
Hmm. Super interesting. And yeah, you were gonna say something about technology, and I think it has something to do also with what Michaela was saying about, if I understood it correctly, Michaela, about loyalty programs. And I think there are many things you can do
Absolutely.
inside the store, right, to get people to lure them in. And so tell us about that. I think that's super
Sure,
interesting.
sure. Yeah, you have technologies being developed and being kind of rolled out in this region. Some companies are more advanced, some less. I would say that UE on average is a bit ahead of the neighbors in terms of the technology. All three companies, they have their loyalty apps. They always have some sort of push offering, kind of tailored, customer tailored offering through the app. One of the features that recently got evolved and being implemented across the networks is the um, license plate recognition. So basically, you have, if you registered on the app and you registered your car and the license plate, the moment you drive to the station, the camera would recognize you. They will know that this is Carlos driving, Rolls-Royce Phantom, right? And
Mhm.
your favorite fuel is this and that, and you normally take a cappuccino from the store. And
Mhm.
by recognizing that, the kind of the prompt information will be given to the fuel attendant. They will tell
Mhm.
you you're 95 as usual. And then there are screens on the refueling area that will push messaging to you that will say, hey, Carlos, how are you? We have special offer on your favorite coffee today. Step inside the
Mhm.
store, right? So
Mhm.
those kind of things, they now starting to appear. It's not standard for the industry.
Mhm.
It's kind of here and there, but those kind of things, they really start to appear.
Interesting. Nikolai, forgive me if my questions they may seem very basic and stupid, but I know nothing about the region. And so,
Yeah, it's okay.
uh, what would you see in a convenience store in the region, like in Saudi? And
Hmm.
do is it like in Denmark where sometimes you have
Hmm.
Circle K and you have some sizable stores? If or would you find clothing? Would you find some really different
Mm,
stuff that you wouldn't find in Europe, for example? Uh,
okay.
what do you typically see? Is it more like a coffee place and you get some sweets and some
Okay.
snacks, or?
Okay. So let me paint you a picture. So the markets like Oman, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, you will find relatively small assortment. So, and by small
Mhm.
assortment, I would say 2 to 3,000 SKUs.
Mhm.
Where a big part of the store is definitely coffee and food. You have drinks, you have tobacco and vapes. Vapes are not kind of allowed in each country, but wherever they're allowed, it's a huge category. But overall, tobacco is an extremely important category for convenience stores. And then you have packaged products, food and non-food, right? You have your snacks, kind of biscuits and chocolates. You have your non-food items, your kind of car care items, some hygiene items, toys maybe, right? So relatively similar to what you would find in Europe or States, right? But then if you go to Saudi, that is a little bit different because historically in Saudi, there was a concept of neighborhood store called Bakala. And Bakala, this is a traditional store, no kind of operational standards, no hygiene, no nice environment, but massive assortment. So 10,000 SKUs and more. And then you would find some random stuff, right? So you would find, your I don't know, carpets and some camping gear and underwear and anything really like random stuff. Massive assortment, and that is something that's been for so long there for the consumer in the neighborhood or on the petrol station. So that is something that a lot of people kind of get used to. And when modern convenience retail operators starting to run their stores in the Saudi market, many of them kind of trying to accommodate for that expectation of having bloated assortment of random things, but all of them eventually come back and say that doesn't work. You cannot have, I don't know, screwdrivers on a shelf in the convenience store. Nobody buys it, right? So there is a transition happening right now that those operators actually reducing their assortment into kind of a normal international standard of, as we call it, Cokes and smokes, right? Plus coffee. So this is kind of how it would look like.
Very interesting. I'm gonna go for my let's say last question here, and as I said, Gustavo, please get everyone ready to jump on stage. But it's more like regarding quote unquote sustainability, electric vehicles. How do you see that? One, the state of electric vehicles there, and as those tend to increase, like our stations also adapting to that reality, provided that the Middle East is such a powerhouse in terms of oil, right?
Yeah, very relevant question. Something that all the operators kind of thinking about and trying to find ways to do it. You see, there is no mass market for EVs just yet. There are a few things that you need to understand is that EVs are still the EVs that are available right now are mostly expensive EVs, right? That's Teslas, and as of last year, Tesla was the most popular EV in the region, but it was on average third car in a family, right? So it was more of a gadget rather than daily driver, right?
It's crazy.
So that is changing now. You have Chinese players coming in very strongly. A lot of
Sure.
different
BYD.
brand. Yeah, exactly. Those kind of folks. So the price will be going down, and also there will be some assembly lines happening in Saudi, so price will go down. That will drive the adoption. Right now, I think the UAE is at the forefront of the electric vehicle sales, and annual registrations are around 5,000 EVs in the UAE, right? And the rest are less. Definitely, infrastructure is a pain. And it's a little bit of chicken and egg, right? The situation. You want to have a lot of chargers before you buy an EV, and then whoever provides the charger wants to wait till there's enough EV drivers before they put the charger, right? So that's a bit tricky, and this is where the government push comes, handy, and this is where the all the policies in place that actually pushing the electrification. So Saudi are very aggressive on that. They have targets that by 2030, I believe, 30% of vehicles on the roads of Riyadh should be
Mhm.
EVs, and there are some policies in place. And there is a um, EV charger provider that was created by the PIF, yeah, Public
Mhm.
Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, and they keep growing their allocations. So overall, not many cars, not many chargers. Um,
Mhm.
the petrol station companies, they definitely trying to play a role in it, and they trying to be one of the charger destinations, but it's still kind of early days. But having said that, authorities, they really do want to push EVs quite a lot.
Interesting, interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. All right, so we have Hawan here. Hawan, go ahead, my friend. Uh,
Thank you. Hello, Nikolai. Congrats for the session. It's really great and really interesting to know more about the convenience market in Middle East. As I'm living here in the US, I was comparing everything you were saying to
Hmm.
what I see here,
Hmm.
and it's really interesting because convenience stores here, like they do advertising, and they don't even talk about the food. It's like
Hmm.
they are supermarkets or any other kind of stuff. They don't even mention the price of the food,
Yep.
anything about that. And I was wondering if you see the same movement in Middle East, because here we have Bucky's.
Hmm.
Like they say they are the biggest convenience store in the world. I don't know. You probably will know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
But the interesting movement that I saw when I visit their store, it like they became a lovely brand, and they are a convenience store. Like you
Hmm.
have everything with Bucky's logo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since a toy, shirts, blankets, everything
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
crazy. And also the other thing that I'd like to answer is like some stores like Wawa, they created products of their own.
Hmm.
So like the milkshake of Wawa is really
Hmm.
famous and everybody
Hmm.
loves it. So you go there sometimes just to grab the milkshake, not even to fill your car.
Yep.
So they started to create new products, and not only retail from products for someone else, but their own products. And I
Hmm.
think was a really interesting movement.
No, 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 definitely. US is kind of the birthplace of convenience retail, right? So 7-Eleven was the very first convenience store ever, as we understand it today. And yes, Bucky's are the largest. That's true. Um, Size-wise, they have the biggest convenience stores. Yeah, you're right. In terms of the fuel is not that important in terms of communications. In here, it also because there's no difference, right? You have the same refinery that supplies all brands with the same fuel, and the prices are fixed. So when it comes to fuel, there's no differentiation. You can't do much. You can talk about the fact that you do have fuel, but it's not very effective. So definitely the communication is happening around the non-fuel elements of the business. When it comes to the assortment, interestingly that you mentioned Wawa, I believe Wawa started as dairy stores. I think they were the dairy manufacturer, and then they added fuel and the rest of it. So that's why the
Yeah.
milkshake is kind of in the DNA of the brand, right? But definitely the food and coffee operations. This is something that all of the petrol station guys they trying to look into and make it something special, something known, being known for. Um, I wouldn't say that there is such a big following as it is for, let's say, Bucky's and having, souvenirs with, let's say, Adnox or Aramco or whatever. Maybe that's something that these guys should consider since they're kind of local heroes, but not that type of things. But overall, private label, having own label products in their assortment, that's definitely happening because you can have higher margins on things like water, for example. Most of them have their own water, um, and some other things, but it's more of a kind of practical products, right? So whether you want to add to the mix rather than emotional reasons, right? It's kind of a T-shirt with Bucky's, right? And not like that, but more of a just having in the assortment a private label product.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. So thank you, Hawan. Yes, so I have myself one question that I believe you passed by during the conversation and now with Hawan's question, but yeah, let me ask that again and you can maybe elaborate a bit more. So I've sent it here on the chat, but do you see a difference in terms of product assortment between a native convenience store and a supermarket that's expanding into smaller markets closer to the customers? What I mean is, I understand the difference of supermarket assortment of products and convenience store, but when the supermarket is going to smaller stores and going closer, do you see that they still have a difference in terms of product assortment? Because it's not like a native convenience store. They're native on that. So
Yeah.
do you see that?
Well, it's a good question. It's a very interesting question because you actually, as you progress, you can see the difference less and less, right? Because the supermarkets, they pay close attention to the convenience and adapt some of those things. So they start implementing coffee corners, they start implementing fresh food, something that convenience was always strong in. But very kind of roughly speaking, there is a difference in a way that convenience stores historically is impulse purchasing. So you have some main reason why you're there, and in most cases it's tobacco. You're stepping in to buy your tobacco because this is one of the most convenient places to get a pack of cigarettes. And then you have different products that are presented there, and you will have an impulse purchase. You will have a chocolate bar or a can of Coke or a can of Red Bull that is impulse purchase. Supermarket assortment, and that's how convenience is built, right? The core assortment is impulse assortment. And in the supermarket, it's still their DNA is planned purchase, right? So they will put a bag of rice, they will put a can of oil, they will put kind of, flour, those type of thing, cooking, things onto the assortment. Maybe smaller size, less assortment as they go smaller in terms of the format, but they will still have that more of a planned purchase type of products. So that's and as I told you, right? The difference is becoming more and more blurry. It's less and less clear. But this is how you would differentiate if it's more impulse or it's more planned.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And I'd like to ask you mentioned that convenience stores, so they are present in some convenient places, like gas stations, and in some other countries, maybe in the region, you have less mass of public transportation, have different type of transportation, but in Europe and some places in the US also, you have maybe in Asia, but you have more so train stations, bus stations, airports, and etc. So, and there's also this is something that the convenience store must also they need also to pay attention to, right? Because it's different the experience for someone that's in a gas station that someone is in a train station. So this is something that they need always to manage around also, right?
Yeah. The essence is the same, is on the go, right? So you have a customer that is stressed on time. So the average time spent in the convenience store is less than 2 minutes. And on average, a consumer spends 19 seconds to make a decision whether they're purchasing something or not, right? So it's a very kind of chop, 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 quick kind of environment. And it's the same for gas station or train station, right? Because in both cases, you want to get along with your day as quickly as possible. But definitely there, in terms of the assortment and kind of how quickly things should be prepared, it's more time pressed in a train station environment. right? And you would find smaller footprint stores in train station with less assortment. So maybe not, 6 types of croissants, but only two, but something that you can grab faster, right? So it's a matter of gaining few more seconds, less choice, quicker decision, quicker transaction, in and out.
Mhm. And yeah, so because of this time sensitive, let's say, customer usage of the convenience store, are these convenience store chain like fostering or demanding some new retail tech? They're demanding these new retail
Mm-hmm.
tech solutions in terms of
Mm-hmm.
faster checkouts, or
Yep.
how can I don't know, I can order something when I'm getting to the station, or I'm getting, oh, I want this and this, and let me see
Yep.
if I can pay prior to get. So what type of solutions have you been also seeing to make this market so faster
Yep.
and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's spot on, right? So you want to make the transaction faster and more seamless, right? And my favorite example when it comes to technology in the convenience space is actually a player from Poland called Żabka, right? So Żabka is the national champion of convenience stores in Poland. They have more than 10,000 stores. Every Pole person lives or works within 5 minutes walking of a Żabka store. They're everywhere. And part of the reason of their success, they have 40% of their employees are in the digital department, right? So some sort of digital activities, technology, payment, and so on and on. 40%, right? That is very unusual for a retail company, right? And they're the ones who are, I think, one of the few companies who successfully rolled out unmanned stores. There's type Żabko Nano, that is fully unmanned store that they're rolling out. I think there's hundreds of them already in Poland. They're the only ones who have really cracked it in terms of the cost of technology versus kind of rolling that out. But definitely unmanned stores, unmanned checkouts, frictionless checkouts. So there are a few solutions even here in the Gulf that where instead of scanning things, you just put it and their camera that is recognizing it and just quickly counts whatever is there, and similar solutions around the globe. And definitely the apps, importance of the mobile app, clear information, offers, prepayment, or other payment methods. So definitely, I think all of the convenience retail companies that are somehow worried about their future, they're looking into those things around the globe, right? And some rolling that out and making it as a norm, as Żabka, for example. Some use it as a more test and learn. Let's try this thing carefully, and then we'll see how it is. So some more aggressive, some less.
Mhm.
Great, great. Amazing.
Yeah, very good, very good. I think we're almost hitting here 50 minutes plus the time that we had networking. My only perhaps question, and then we'll wrap this up, Nikolai. It's kind of like following what Gustavo was saying a little bit, because you mentioned, so for example, we have convenience stores. I believe payment technologies, which leads us also to loyalty programs, are
Yep.
very important, right?
Yep.
And then going back to what Michaela was saying, because she's in the ad space,
Yep.
Microsoft ad space, uh, I believe that if you have loyalty programs, then you can start creating a whole ecosystems and brand collaborations around this, right? So, do you have some, maybe, if you remember, some examples of uh, brand collaborations and marketing programs that started or that exist in the region,
Mm.
related to, loyalty programs that started in a convenience store, or in a fuel forward slash convenience store company,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that that helped the company such and such have more visibility and so on. I'm asking this question on kind of like on her behalf. I'm not sure if she
Mm-hmm.
would ask this question, but something I'm curious as well.
Well, not something big on top of my mind, but definitely there are ways how convenience operators work together with other brands and other partners, right? So you have a lot of ways how you can promote each other. And if, let's say, you have an FMCG supplier with a new product launch, you can support them by talking about their product in your stores, both physically and also digitally, right? Through the app, through the screens, and even some of the players here, they even tested out the kind of sounds, right? So the instead of music, you have the promotion of new product or
Oh,
new
nice.
brands,
Yeah.
right? Things like that, and also collaborations with let's say air carriers, right? Here in Abu Dhabi, you have ADNOC. You gathering your points when you're refueling or buying something in the store, and then you can convert that into Etihad miles, right? So that's something that again, brand collaboration quite prominent, two prominent brands in completely different industries. So yeah, examples like that. But definitely, I'm sure there are more, but not as kind of shiny and well known
Yeah.
on top of my mind.
Yeah, not necessarily. I don't think it has to be shiny. It's just some, stuff that we'll figure. But would be nice eventually to let's talk about your events. What do you guys discuss in your events there? Because we are interested, as in
Yep.
Evolve. So
Yeah.
putting ourselves
Yeah.
out there as well.
Yeah, so we do have a series of events. We have an annual conference for the industry here in the region. It's a kind of knowledge sharing and networking, but we also run smaller events, city by city. It's called Supplier Innovation Day. So basically, I bring in one room all the convenience retail companies that are based in a given city, let's say Dubai, Riyadh, Jeddah, Doha, and so on, for half a day. And then I'm inviting suppliers who have something interesting, something innovative, something new to present. And they just share their stories one by one, right? So, and we spend
Right.
half a day listening to different suppliers and their solutions.
Perfect, brilliant. And typically, what do you guys have in terms of suppliers? Is it more like tech driven? Is it everything and anything?
It's quite open-ended in terms of we inviting everyone who interested in convenience channel, be that a service, a product, a solution. But we've been over the last year, we've been more working more with some different technology providers, and that could be POS systems, that could be kind of location planning, that could be Google Ads
Nice.
type of providers, and so on and on. So it's actually, at the end of the day, it's more technology driven suppliers that come and present, but we keeping it open to everyone.
Let's do something. Michaela, there you go. All right. Okay, so Nikolai, it's been a pleasure. I really hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed a lot this conversation. So
Same here.
And I learned, man. I learned a lot. So I enjoy doing things when I know nothing about the region, so I can learn. So if people want to know more about you and your company, what's the best way to reach out and to figure more about you?
Sure, absolutely. So I have my LinkedIn. You will find me there. I have my website, prostore.consulting. And then through you, if you can share my details as well, phone number, email, also
Sure
easy,
thing.
very open to everyone.
Awesome. So that was it. That was Nikolai. Nikolai, I'm gonna pause the session and I'll see you in the backstage. Thanks very much. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you for
And
having
see
me.
you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.